Hello and welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. Today I have an incredibly special guest who is in the Institute of Health with myself, and we are working together on helping to make the world a healthier place in our own unique ways. Faye Noxe is our guest today, and she is a skin and acne specialist, and she's going to be talking to us not only about why she does what she does and why she believes her way is the best way to help people with their skin, but also a bit more into Faye's life. So Faye, welcome on board.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. So talk to us about what you do, why you do it, why you believe your way is the best. Like, tell us everything.
Oh, right, okay. We'll start from the very beginning. So from the age of 14, I've always had breakouts. And it wasn't until I left school, went on to college, that it became so severe that it really did start to affect my life. So many visits back and forth to the doctors, many creams, many antibiotics. Tried to be prescribed the pill at the age of 14, which I just wasn't comfortable with. I remember going home and I said to my mum, like, I don't have a boyfriend. Why should I take this? And she was like, do not take that if you don't feel comfortable. So when I finally got to the age of 20, my skin was just so severe and it was really affecting my life in terms of jobs. You know, I always remember wanting to apply for a job on a makeup counter, and I just thought, they'll never have me, like, with this skin, never do that. Holidays, I wouldn't book holidays. It would take me 3 hours to psych myself up to get ready to leave the house for any event. And I didn't even go to my school prom because I had severe back acne. I missed out on so many things. So I eventually bit the bullet, went to the doctors and begged him to refer me to the hospital to go on Roaccutane. Do you know Roaccutane?
Mate, I went on it.
Did you?
This is why this is so interesting for me.
Okay. How long were you on it for?
So similar to yourself. So I didn't have acne too much as a young kid, but I went on the pill at like 15, so super young. And then I think my skin got really bad, mostly when I moved into fitness. So when I actually started to get healthier, because before I was in fitness, I was a serious, like, would go raving every weekend, drinking, taking drugs. Like, I was wild. Then I started to get healthier. And like you say, like, mine was mostly chin. So all across my chin and like down my back and on my chest as well, it got to. So I think it got to when I was like 24, and I went to the doctors and they gave me all these different, like, is it called topical creams?
Yeah.
Topical creams. Nothing worked. And I just ended up getting quite like big rashes and stuff. They referred me to the skin clinic here in Shrewsbury. No, like, pretty much was just so easy being put on Roaccutane. And yeah, so I was on it for about 6 months, I think.
Yeah. So I was on it for 5 at a really high dosage. At the end, I was on 60 milligrams, which is very high. Now, how they do it is a low dosage at 20, but for a longer period of time because the side effects are so severe. Like, how it works is it stops your oil glands from producing oil. So that's great from an acne perspective because there's no oil to mix with the dead skin cells to clog the pore to then form a spot. But from a whole health perspective, your skin dries out. You know, I don't know if you had this, but the corners of my mouth split. Like, all I can explain or compare it to is the Joker off of Batman. Even when you go to talk or eat, you can't open your mouth so wide. Nosebleeds, dry eyes, brittle, breaking hair that's just falling out and shedding. Your bones feel like you're the Tin Man of Wizard of Oz because they're just so seized up. There's no lubricant. So although I do feel like there is a place in the world for it, if someone is so, desperate as I was, it's a very serious drug that shouldn't just be prescribed so easily like it is today. Um, so I went on that, and you have to go and have the monthly health checkups to check your liver because vitamin A at high dosages really takes a heavy toll on the liver. Check your mental health. So they'd look at you and assess you, and you can tell, like, when they're conversing with you, they're like looking to see how you are as a person. And then obviously the birth defects. So Roaccutane, I think it's like 98% can cause a birth defect. So you have to go on a form of birth control at the same time. So at that point, I'd done my research, heard that Yasmin was one of the better oral contraceptive pills to take for skin because it reduces sebum. So I swapped from the Depot Provera injection, which looking back now, I think really triggered my skin, to the pill. So not only was I on Roaccutane, I was also on the pill. Before Roaccutane, you have to go on antibiotics. And I know, like, knowing what we know now, I'm like, oh, my poor body, my poor gut, my poor liver. Anyway, skin cleared. That was great. Was on the pill for 3 to 4 years. And I read this book called The Period Repair Manual by Laura Brydon. Literally changed my life. She just listed all these symptoms that the pill can cause. And I was like, tick, 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 tick. And you know, when you just have this realization that, wow, I thought this was me as a person, but actually, what if it's this pill that I've been taking every single day? And before that, an injection I was having every single month. What if that's made me the person that I am with the symptoms that I have? So I sat with my partner and I said, look, I'm going to come off of the birth control pill. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the natural fertility awareness method, but just know that these symptoms might come back. I might be all over the place. I just want to make you aware. I think it's so important to have that conversation. I came off it within a week. My mood was lifted. I just couldn't believe it. Like, I'd usually get out of bed. I felt like there was a dark cloud above my head and I knew it was there, but I couldn't shake it off. Within a week of coming off, I felt like a different person already. More frequent bowel movements when all my life I've been told that, oh no, a lady does usually go 3 to 7 days, you know, when it's meant to be daily. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So all these things started to iron out, but then because the androgens surged, my hair was falling out, the acne came back. So that's when I was introduced to an amazing naturopath who I worked with and worked on the nutrition side of things, the supplementation, the stress management. And after 8 months of not having a period, it came back, which I just cried because that was the scariest thing for me. You know, not having that control over whether you can have kids or not to the extreme. That was the sticking point for me. The acne just became a bit of a sideline. So then that was great. She got me my period back, but the skin was just still aggravated. It was still there. So then I found Chinese herbal medicine that really helped me. And then I was like, wow, this stuff actually works. Like, you know, adding more protein to my diet, working on blood sugar regulation, all these things I never knew about. So then that just opened this door to holistic health. And when I lived in Australia, I was like, right, I'm coming back to England. I'm going to learn to be a skin practitioner. I'm going to qualify in holistic health and nutrition. And I'm going to combine the two to help people get to that root cause so they can have sustainable results for good.
Love it. That's such an incredible journey because I think it's really important. It's not 100% like it's not always necessary, but I think businesses feel different when the person who's running it has walked the walk.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's amazing. And I definitely felt very similar to you in the kind of like journey of Roaccutane. I remember the appointments being really like almost like patronizing, like, are you sure you're okay? It's like you're making me question myself. And I was doing personal training once, so I felt like an itch at the side of my lip and I itched it like that, and literally like it was like a like what's called like a mold of skin of my whole top lip literally just fell off. It was like one whole piece of skin. I was like, wow, it's mad.
I always remember being sat in a work meeting because I worked in a corporate job, and I went to speak and my mouth just cracked and started bleeding. And I could cry thinking about it. I was so embarrassed to be sat in front of the CEO of my company. And I just said, I'm sorry, I've got to shoot. And my manager came to me after because I said to him, I'm going on this drug where I have to go on to the hospital every month to have checkups. So I'll have more frequent appointments. So I'll be absent. And he's like, that's fine. And he came out and he went, why are you doing this to yourself? He said to me, yes, you have acne, but surely you get to a point where this drug is causing more harm than good. Like, he says, you're a shell of yourself. And I did become a shell of myself because the things that made me feel like myself, even with having acne, like going to the gym, like even small things like getting my eyebrows waxed, which you can't do,
No.
I just thought, "Oh, is this actually really worth it?" But then you come out the end of it and you think it is, but I didn't know the impact it had on my underlying health as well.
You like read all the stories, don't you, of how like brutal Roaccutane is, but you kind of think, yeah, it'll be fine, and then you get started, and because you've started, you're like, well, I've just got to keep going. I might share some pictures actually, like when we launched this, of where like my acne and how things went, because I remember my eyes, like you couldn't see any white in my eyes, they were so bloodshot. So to explain it in like simple terms, because bringing functional health into this podcast is quite new. So to explain it to someone who's listening, like obviously you've done the kind of conventional things of going on Roaccutane. We've both tried probably topics like creams and stuff. What is it that you now do? So how does your kind of like plan, how does your like promise, I suppose, what does it do in like layman's terms?
So I have a skin clinic where people come to me for consultations, then the treatment side of things, but I also do virtual online consultations and programs. So since joining the Institute of Health, what I'm going to do is go more online with the program side of things so that I am with you every step of the way instead of just coming to me for a monthly treatment. Because one of the things that I felt like I missed when I was younger with my skin struggles was that support, and
Mm,
just that support and knowing that you're on the right track. Because with acne especially, what can happen is you get a purge, which just means your skin is detoxing it out at a faster
mm,
rate. And that's the point where a lot of people feel like it's getting worse. The protocol's not working, so they should give up.
mm,
So now what I do is we have the consultation form, which is very lengthy. I like to know absolutely everything. Then we have the skin consultation, which takes 60 minutes. I don't call it skin consultation anymore because we talk about everything:
mm,
hormones, liver detoxification, gut health, stomach function, digestive function, everything, because everything is a factor to skin. The misconception is that it's one thing that's causing it. It's, oh, you're eating too much dairy, or your hormones are imbalanced, and it's like, yeah, but what's causing this? These are just messengers. What's actually throwing the fuel onto the fire and causing that fire to start burning? So after the consultation, then it's that 12-week program, weekly check-ins, webinars, empowerment calls to make sure that you are in a right place mentally, because a lot of skin practitioners as well kind of not ignore, but they miss the mark on the mindset around skin. So if you're not in that correct mindset, if you're in that negative way of thinking, why me? I'm so unlucky, blah, blah, blah. I always say you're not going to heal. Your
no.
skin will not heal because one, your hormones won't heal, your stress response is still elevated. So two, three, your skin is definitely not going to heal. So
Mm.
I always try and just address that mindset and thought process around acne to begin with. And then the holistic health things, the functional medicine follows. And then hopefully soon, blood work analysis to interpret as well.
Love that. And that's the thing. It's something that we do inside Coaching Club as well. It's very much like, if you don't believe that what we're prescribing you, what we're giving you to do, what we've agreed to do as a team, like we will agree the plans with people, we won't just give them to people. If you don't believe it, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you, one, don't believe that you can do it, and two, don't believe that it will work, there is no point, because your mind will go into self-sabotage loops. It will, like what Jake says quite frequently, we don't do what we want, we do what we expect of ourselves. And that's so true. If you believe that your skin is never going to get better, you're going to do the things that keep it in that way by default.
And this is the biggest thing that I noticed from my first experience with acne when I was much younger, much more naive, much more in that why me, just blaming my skin and separating it from myself, to the second time when coming off the pill, I knew it was something internally and I knew something was triggering it. that second time I saw my acne more as a sign.
Mm,
And then I was thankful because I thought, well, my body is telling me that it needs attention.
mm,
Whereas the first time I was just blaming it and I never put me and my skin together as a whole. The second time, once you have that more, I mean, the book, the period repair manual, I always go back to that, having that knowledge that it can be a cause of something going on in this inside, coming off birth control, etc. It gives you a bit more of a, you have control over this and there is hope. Whereas,
mm,
when you don't have that knowledge, those answers and that education, you do feel hopeless. So that's why it's
100%.
so important to educate my clients on why you are doing this. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. And if you think about it, I think that's generally a lot of what happens in society. So again, if I link it back to me with doing blood work, my mum's got an underactive thyroid. So I kind of thought, well, I'd never really looked into what I need to do. And I never really thought, like, I thought, well, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I've always been active, I really do treat myself well. So hopefully by the time I get to 50, like my mum, like I won't get an underactive thyroid. I had one set of bloods done and they were like, you do realize you're trending towards underactive thyroid. And I was like, holy fuck, it's so scary to hear
Yeah.
that. But then they were like, don't worry, we're going to increase your selenium, we're going to increase this, we're going to increase that, we're going to maybe look at reducing this. And I was like, okay, so it can be prevented. And that's the same with acne. Like I always and still believe now, because I still have battles with it, that, acne is just kind of like, it just happens, and that you don't really have much control over it. But actually, so if you are looking at bloods, what are the kind of common things? And I know this could be hard to answer, but like a bit of a vague answer. What are the common kind of like things that are high or things that are low that you see in bloods, which then could be the factor of causing acne?
So, from knowledge and self experience, the first thing everyone thinks of is high androgens, which is your testosterone. So, basically, if testosterone is elevated, and that doesn't necessarily mean that testosterone is high, it means that other things could be low.
Mm,
If testosterone is elevated, then that can predominantly cause an increase in sebum production. So, things that can increase that testosterone are things like post pill, certain medications, but also a diet high in refined sugars. Dairy's a big one. If your insulin's all over the place, if your blood sugar's dysregulated. And another thing is stress.
mm,
Then we've got that high cortisol. So going back to that stress, if your stress is not addressed, if you are in that chronic, constant fight or fight mode, then all your other hormones are going to take a backseat because now's not the time to ovulate and make a
mm,
baby. It's not safe. Then that has a knock-on effect on your digestion. So your digestion slows down because we're going to use our stored energy. We're not going to start trying to digest foods now. And then obviously it goes back to that increased cortisol, which then increases oil production. So I always say it's never one thing. It's like that
mm.
first domino falls and the rest follows. It's like a balancing act. We've got to pick that first domino up and then see what else it's knocked down. Another thing is zinc. If zinc's low, that can exacerbate acne. And I've also seen in clinic, vitamin D has a strong correlation, omega-3s. They're the main things. But obviously then it comes to hormones as well. Is your thyroid underactive? How's your liver doing? Are you detoxifying properly? So it's never just from the bloods as well. It's from how is your toxic load? How is your
Mm.
inflammation? How's your blood glucose? So there's so many things to consider. And that's why I think it is pivotal and so important to get that blood work done. Otherwise, you are just guessworking. And fair enough, you can do a phase one where we do the simple basic things like increasing your water intake, supplementing with zinc, maybe, having protein in every meal to stabilize your blood sugar. But then that blood work is going to be very specific to you and your needs.
Love that. And that is so true. And I think for the listeners hearing you talk, then, there could be so many people who are going tick, 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 and they wonder why their skin is in the place that it is. And this isn't a judgment zone. It's not a place for people to start blaming themselves. This is here to empower people, for them to go, oh my goodness, so if I have protein with every meal, that's going to help. And then if I'm going to try and regulate my stress, and if you think about it, you know, stress management, imagine if they taught that at schools or at a young age, and like, when you feel this, try to do something that makes you feel like this. So when you feel stressed, try to do something that makes you feel calm. When you feel anxious, try to do something that makes you feel grounded. Imagine if we taught that to kids.
Yeah. The world would be such a different place, and a lot of diseases would have been prevented. I honestly think stress, we need stress. Everyone, like, don't see stress as a devil. It helps us survive. But from a more important view, the way that we live our lives today is not normal. You
Mm.
know, it is constantly elevated. And a misconception as well is when I ask clients, rate your daily stress level from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, they go, well, I'm not that stressed, probably like a 2, my job's fine, and I go, okay, what's your workout schedule look like? Oh, I go for like a 10-mile run every morning on an empty stomach, first thing. Okay, in the morning, your cortisol's at its highest, and then you're increasing it even more. Then you're coming home and you're having a coffee on an empty stomach. That's adding to your cup of cortisol. Then you're not eating because you're fasting till mid-afternoon. Okay, that is a stress to the body. So it's all of these things. It's not just emotional as physical stress. It's all of these things that the body perceives as stress. Because basically, if your body is not in homeostasis, it's a stress because your
Mm.
body's trying to survive.
It's crazy, and there's just not enough education about it. And if you think about it, so one thing that we had in one of our check-in forms was the word stress, but we actually found that people had a really negative relationship with that word, so we changed it to pressure slash overwhelm. And it then seems to be like, because if people are busy, they're a bit like, well, I'm not stressed, I'm just busy. But then so they're not really understanding, like, what do we mean by stress? So by saying, the pressure that you feel and how overwhelmed you feel, they're like, oh yeah, like that's easily like an 8 out of 10. Well, like, okay, now we're talking. So
Yeah.
I want to dig into you a little bit more, if that's okay, Faye.
Yeah.
So, on the Ladies Best Life podcast, we're here to help people to live a life of more fulfillment, more freedom. Like, a lot of people join who have been under that stress, pressure, overwhelm for many years. They then result in bodies that they really don't enjoy, they don't feel proud of, they don't feel good in their skin. And they basically are missing out on a lot of life because they're so busy, they're so overwhelmed, they're people pleasing. So, do you feel like you live a life of fulfillment and freedom?
Truthfully, at the moment, probably not.
Okay. Thank you
I
for your honesty.
I am a very honest person. I do feel like since being self-employed, I do have a lot more freedom,
Yeah.
but I struggle with setting boundaries with myself. That is my biggest thing because I am a people pleaser and I am very all or nothing. And it does become a sticking point for me and my boundaries. But I will tell you now that I have got a lot better. Like my work phone goes off at 8 o'clock at night, but I always find myself thinking, if I've got a little task to do, I may as well just do it, while before bed. But these are the things that I preach to my clients. So I have to practice it as well. And I don't think anyone's perfect. I'll always be honest with my clients and say, oh, yeah, I set my goals as well with my clients weekly in the Facebook group. They have one and I have one because I always think there's room for improvement and no one's perfect. And I think having that honesty as well with your clients makes them realize you are a normal person and you're not just this person, this health guru that has 8 hours of sleep per day, does sauna every day, and ice baths every day. Because I don't have time for that. I wish I did, but honesty is the best policy, and it makes it more realistic, which for the client, I think, makes it an easier journey as well for them.
It gives them permission to be authentic and honest themselves. This is
It
it.
does. And this
Mm.
is what I was thinking this morning as well. Even as health coaches or whatever we call ourselves, I think it's beneficial for us to have that coach as well,
Mm.
because you can think you're doing all the right things. Like, as I say, me getting the laptop up at 9 o'clock at night to do a quick email, that can quickly become your normal. and then you oversee it as, well, like, it's not stressing me out and
Yeah.
I feel fine doing it. I'd rather get it done than leave it to tomorrow. But internally, that's blue light exposure before bed. That's stimulating your central nervous system, which is then affecting your hormone regulation, your melatonin production. So internally, it's having an effect. But because that's becoming our norm or my normal, you overlook it.
Mm. It is so true. And I have a coach. I have both a mental performance coach, I have a blood work coach, and I actually have a business coach and IOH as well. I have an epic boardroom. There is a reason for that. You know, I like to implement fast. I like to be held up to high standards. And probably the person who holds me to the highest personal standards is my mental performance coach, because we have like a call once every month now it is, and he has notes on all of our sessions. So he's very much like, okay, so you're telling me this, but then before you told me this. And it's just being called out on your bullshit left, right, and center. It's amazing. I'm like, I sit there and I'm like, yeah, I suppose. But I
Uh,
love it. And I think, like you say, honesty is 100% the best policy. And I think a lot of coaches feel like they have to be on a pedestal. And I feel this does happen with men and women. Like they feel like they have to be on this pedestal. They can't ever fuck up. But think about when we talk about the word pressure, what pressure does that put on people? So you mentioned that your boundaries aren't the best and that you're a bit of a people pleaser. Do you know why that is?
um, yeah, I know why. And I think it goes back to childhood trauma, which I'm not going to delve into too much. But I've always just been like, yes, 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 just to please family members, friends. And childhood trauma, I think, has a huge role to play in how we develop and are formed. And it's not to say that you have to live that way and be that way forever, because you can overcome past beliefs and, change them. But I just feel like I am an outspoken person if I believe in something, but just to keep the peace, I'll just mute myself, or I did in the past. So then when I think it's a fear of not being liked as well, even though I try and say, oh, I don't care if no one likes me. I think everyone has that underlying fear of not being liked. Like I always remember at college when someone came up to me and said, "Such shouldn't like you." Like this was years ago, 27 now, and I always remember thinking, "But I haven't done anything. What have I done? I've never spoke to her." Like, ah. And then you get in your own head. You think, "What have I done?" You start over analyzing how you look at people, how you speak to people, even like. I mean, I have a resting bitch face. I'm a Scorpio, so it's ingrained in me. And I'll find myself like sat like this, and I'm like, oh, "You better smile. You've not smiled." Like, and it's just this that goes on in the head, and it becomes so overwhelming that you just need to kind of say, right, there's a point of being a people pleaser, which to some extent, at a small fraction, is okay. But then, how much is it of you just over analyzing everything you're doing and becoming a bit self-obsessed in a way?
Mm.
Does that make sense?
100%. And if you think back to like from a primal standpoint, we needed to be part of the pack back in the day when we were hunter gatherers, right? Because if we didn't, we wouldn't survive, mate. And this
Mm.
is what I say to the ladies in CC, like a lot of our world has evolved so much. You know, we now have technology, we now have cars that pretty much drive themselves, that we can interact with anyone across the globe, but our minds haven't caught up yet. So we're still like, our minds are generally still stuck in primal age. So it's like, you know, you've got to fit into the pack. You've got to be liked by other people, because if not, you are literally dead.
You're
And
left.
that's where it comes. Yeah, you're left behind. So even kind of like taking out the thing of childhood trauma, which I believe pretty much everyone goes through, but there's different degrees and stuff, and it will impact everybody slightly differently. But if you think about it from that standpoint, like we all want to belong. And when people say, I don't fucking care, like they can think what they want, it's absolute bullshit. And I think you can develop it. Like I now am getting better, like you hear that initial thing and you're like, oh fuck, like have I upset someone? But then you have to like take a step back. And this is where you have the opportunity to kind of like, we call it reparent yourself, to be like, right, okay, did you do anything to upset them? Yes, no, okay. So they formed a judgment of themselves. So what can we do about that? Is it within our circle of control? Okay, no, it's not. So what do you need to do right now to make you feel good? Because it's basically just that inner child going, oh my God, I got to be liked, I got to be loved, oh my God. Like, but the thing is, we could spend our whole life trying to keep other people happy. And we were talking about this before we came on air. And by doing that, the one person we mostly upset is ourselves. So it's not easy. Okay, so next question, if you're happy to move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Where would you say you've been most successful in life?
Probably the last year. I mean, in October it'll be 2 years, which is this week. How crazy is that? It's October.
I know.
Anyway, it'll be 2 years since I moved back from Australia. And within that 2 years, the first 9 months I worked in retail whilst I did my studies. So I've only had my clinic for 12, 13, 14, 16 months. And it is just so busy, like so busy, which is amazing. And when I like look at my goals that I set and I look back at the goals I set last year, I'm hitting those goals left, right, and center so fast. So it's hard, isn't it, when you're moving so fast, you never sit back and look at what you've accomplished. But my biggest success is definitely opening that clinic and just helping people with their skin, and not only seeing them gain confidence, but like do things that they didn't have the confidence to do. For example, one client who, bless her, I went downstairs to the local cafe with my leaflets when I first opened, and she had acne. And I had no testimonials, I had no client before and afters. And she was like, yep, I'm coming. She stuck with me every single month, and her skin has completely cleared. But not only that, we did a bit of holistic health and nutrition coaching, lifestyle coaching. She started journaling. She's got all these practices she does now. And just to see her come through the door still every month, and she's just blossomed to be this amazing, like really confident human, that she's now gone on to pass a driving test. She's changed jobs, which she's been wanting to do for ages. And I just think, wow, like she is a different person to who walked through that door initially. And I've got a few client cases like that, but she sticks out to me the most just because she believed in me without any of the before and afters. You know, with it is hard with Instagram nowadays. Everyone looks straight at your profile, don't they, to see how good you are. And I just think she must have been in a position where she was so desperate, she would have tried anything, even this girl that's just come down to the cafe with a leaflet. And now look at how she's blossomed. So her story really does make me feel like I've succeeded at what I wanted to set out to do.
Isn't it just the best when, you know, so for ours, the kind of like transfer of that would be weight loss generally. But isn't it so good when they come in and they get what they came for, they get that goal, they get so a clear, like the acne is cleared, but then they also get the kind of like the knock-on effect of that. They get the other benefits, which is where the true value lies, you know, in both going through a acne clearing phase, whatever you call it, and also like a fat loss phase like they do with us. Like that is just the beginning. So
absolutely, because this is what I tell everyone, it's a journey and it's a lifestyle change. And once you discover one thing, that'll lead to another door, and another door opens. So it's never you just come and get your skin cleared. You'll learn more about your other symptoms. They'll start to clear as well, because we'll work on those internally. And I suppose it is the same for you as well, that it's not just weight loss, it's your life. It changes everything.
100%. And if you think about it, we're both very much like root cause. And it's the same for weight loss. It's the same for skin. You can't just treat the symptoms like what it seems like we both experienced with going on Roaccutane. It's just like, right, blast this, let's get rid of it. You're not really going to the root cause. So first of all, congratulations, like to do what you've done in like 13, 14 months is bloody incredible. Now I want to know, like you've touched upon boundaries, people pleasing. Would you say they're the top thing that you struggle with right now, or is there something else that you're like, this is the thing that I'm like, it's like that kind of like parachute dragging you back?
Do you know what? It's funny because with everything that I've achieved, which I've proven myself wrong, there's still that little person that's just like, how are you going to do this? You're not going to be able to do this. And you still kind of listen to that subconscious thought, even though I've done all the courseworks around the mindset, that subconscious thought keeps popping up. So when I, like I've got a webinar tonight on hormones and acne, and I've done webinars, I've done empowerment calls, but there's always that thought that comes to your head, like, what if you stutter? What if you do this? Blah 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 blah. But I've done really well just to say, okay, hush that subconscious thought. Thank you. I know you're there to protect me because you're here based on what's happened in the past. But I'm okay. I'm fine. I don't need you to keep reminding me. And this is where journaling is so, so valuable as well, I think, because you can just circulate all these thoughts and emotions in your head. But as soon as you get it on paper and you read it back to yourself, you think, that's not true. Or why am I talking to myself like that? So journaling's amazing as well. But the boundaries, what was the other thing?
People pleasing.
Boundaries, people pleasing, and negative self-talk. I do believe everyone does have a small amount of negative self-talk. I do think it's natural, but I also think it is doable to push that voice and tell it you're fine and that it's okay to continue with what you're doing and push through.
Yeah. Have you read any of Fern Cotton's books?
I do have one, but I've not read it yet.
Which one is it?
Happy.
Okay. And what's her latest one? I've got it on the shelf over there, but that one I read probably last year, and she gave me well, not me personally, she in the book she like, thanks Fern. She talks about the ego, and she was like, instead of being like, oh, ego, like fuck off, like telling me I can't do these things and like stop making me doubt myself, literally be like, oh, ego, I know you're worried, come here, give me a cuddle. Like literally like become at one with your ego, knowing that, like you said, it's there to protect us, it's there to keep us safe, but we don't need to listen to it. And actually, so we did as a kind of like a masterclass, we call them in Coaching Club, a couple of weeks ago, where we mostly focused on mindset. And one of the kind of like final frames that I delivered was, imagine if we could all run towards self-doubt. Imagine if we could all run towards imposter syndrome, because then we would know that we're growing, and we would then not be scared of the very signs that show we're growing. We would actually embrace them and go head on to them. And they're all like, yeah, because they're going to be there anyway. Everyone gets self-doubt. Everyone will have that time, like you said, about where like, oh, like I don't think they like me anymore. Well, guess what? Like when we change, the people who had a conditional attachment / friendship to you won't like it. So imagine if we could, and it's not to be toxic or bullshit or anything, but imagine if we could take some of those things that we associate with negativity with the personal development journey, and we could actually go, they're meant to be here. Like, yeah, these exist here regardless. So imagine if we change our relationship with them and actually honor them instead.
And it shows that you're doing something that's out of your comfort zone. Vulnerability is the word that I use a lot, which scares the hell out of people. But if you're not going to put yourself in a vulnerable position, how is your life ever going to change? How are you ever going to evolve? Have you seen the TED Talk on vulnerability?
By who?
I can't remember. It's a female. I have to look for her name, but that is absolutely amazing. If you just type it in, it will come up.
Not Brené Brown.
I think it is.
Yeah, Brené Brown is like the queen of vulnerability. She's bloody incredible. And follow her on socials as well. And it is so true. Like, but I think going down the path of encouraging people to see it as a positive is a long one. You know, we got a long way to go. But again, it comes from people like you and I, who are kind of like leaders in the areas that we work in. You know, and people do look up to us. People do see us as inspiration. It comes for us to lead the way in that way.
Absolutely. And like you say, it's a long way to go, but it's absolutely realistic. And instead of, you know, when we use these words like vulnerability, imposter syndrome, instead of seeing a red flag being waved above there, see a green flag. And like you say, just run towards it, because that's how you're going to break the barriers and change your life, basically.
100%. So what is one message to your former self?
Oh, it'd probably be that it's not your fault that you have acne. It's not your fault that you're not getting answers from the doctors and you're still pushing on. Just keep pushing on. Find your own answers. Like, keep doing the research. You'll come across the right people that will lead you on the right path. And never take no for an answer, because when I came off the pill, if I'd have gone to the doctors like I did and said, I want to get these blood test results done, they're like, well, do you want to get pregnant if you're coming off the pill? No, I'm doing the fertility awareness method. I had 3 doctors literally laugh in my face saying, you're going to get pregnant. You're going to get pregnant. What are you going to do? And each time I booked another appointment to get those bloods. I booked another appointment. And eventually I did get those bloods done, went back. She says, everything's fine. And I was like, no, I'm not taking that as the answers. Took them to someone else. I got the answers I needed, got on the supplements, got on the plan. So if I hadn't have kept pushing through to get my own answers, I don't know what position I would have been in. I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing right now, and I wouldn't be sat here talking to you. But we're so lucky now that functional medicine and that side of things is becoming more apparent. But I still think it's so hard for people to find people like us for that help and support. And I wish when I was younger, I had someone like myself, which is the person I'm becoming. So I'd just say it's not your fault. Never take no as an answer. Keep pushing through, because you'll get the answers that you need and more.
Love it. And I think as you were talking then, I was thinking, just for a second, consider the amount of people who are listening to this podcast who will need to hear that, maybe not just directly with their skin, but in other areas, whether it be fat loss, whether it be, a tough time with your marriage or whatever, right? There are so many different areas that your message of don't give up, don't blame yourself, never take no for an answer, we all know when we've got that gnawing feeling at the back of our mind going, it's not enough. It's not enough. It can't be the answer. And it's so inspirational that you were able to listen to that voice instead of just go, right, I've been told by 3 GPs, which we are, really trusting of, just to kind of surrender. So well done you for not.
Thank you.
Welcome. So is there anything that you would like to finish by saying? Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? And are there any kind of like final pearls of wisdom that you would like to share?
So everyone can find me on Instagram at Faye, which is FAYEK face. So Faye K face. I do have a TikTok account as well, but I'm not very active, I'm not gonna lie. And yeah, just thank you for today. I hope it helps someone. If anyone is struggling with their skin or anything, just reach out. I'm happy to help. But I do provide a lot of valuable content on my Instagram. But just keep smiling, and like I say, keep pushing through. Never take no for an answer, and just prioritize yourself and your health, because at the end of the day, if you aren't, who else is gonna? So
100%. Thank you so much. And at the end of the day as well, like you said, if you're not going to do it, who else will? But your health is actually all you've got.
yeah.
So you've got to look after it. So Faye, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. That was so valuable. Literally, that is going to be a game changer for so many people. And your Instagram is also insane, like packed full of value. So yeah, 100% people need to go and listen. And ladies, thank you so much for giving this a listen today. We will see you next week on the Ladies Best Life podcast.